All right, guys, I think we're going to just move right into the next demo, and the next gentleman who's going to be presenting is going to be salting, aging, and flavoring. And Chef David Burke, I think, has been spoken about as one of the most original chefs out there, and I don't think anybody debates that fact. He's somebody who has paved the way for a lot of young chefs in our industry, and I think he deserves a lot of credit for that. And he's going to be here speaking about one of my favorite subjects, is beef. So without any ado, David Burke.
Hi, guys. It's a couple minutes to get set up. Let's put the beef down here. We're going to talk about flavor today in a couple different ways, and we're going to start with beef and dry aging. I've got a steakhouse in Chicago that's about a year and a half old, and we dry age our beef for up to 80 days. And for those that aren't familiar with dry aging, what's happening is you're putting the meat in a temperature-controlled room, a walk-in basically, humidity-controlled, fans and black lights to cut down on bacteria. The fans help move the air around. We came up with a flavor spray product about 3 years ago. And I was trying to get flavor spray to taste like dry age so that we could actually get a filet mignon that tastes like a dry aged piece of beef, which you can't dry age fillets because there's no bone on it and there's no fat. So these will probably rot when you put a fillet in a dry aging room. So we went to the lab. We gave them one of these pieces of meat. And this is when I was at Park Ave Cafe. And we sent it, we analyzed it with the scientists. They cut it up, they ground it, they cooked it, they melted some of the fat. And there was about 300 or 400 flavors in a piece of dry aged meat. And the number one flavor was cardboard. So the doctor and the scientist said to me, David, you've got cardboard flavored beef, and which we were serving at the restaurant. But that was the number one flavor. And the reason cardboard was there, because cardboard was on the floor of the walk-in. So it absorbed the flavor of cardboard over a 30 or 40 day period. So what we did is we designed a walk-in aging box with salt. And we did some experiments before we opened. And every time we did salt in one box, and then we did beef without salt. And what happened was the beef with the salt, a blind tasting, always won. It was about 20 chefs involved. So we have one wall in the walk-in now that's completely made of about 500 bricks. And what it does, it permeates the meat. So you'll get a piece of meat here that actually is seasoned in the center to a certain degree due to the fact that the air is salted. It's pure air. It actually goes into the center of the beef. This meat is 28, 40, 60, and 80 days old. So a piece of meat that's 80 days old is usually covered with hair, mold, rot. It would look like a blue cheese in most cases. But here, because of the salt, it's pure, and it cuts like butter. What happens is the salt goes into the meat. The enzymes break down the beef. You're getting tenderness. You're getting flavor. You're losing a lot of moisture. Let me give you an example here. This is an 80-day rib. It came in at 17 pounds. It's now 13 and a half. So you're losing that much water weight, which intensifies the beef flavor. The other one here is 17, went down to 14. That's a 55-day. You've got a 28-day, which you can see the color of this versus the color of this. And I think we've got a 40-day age here. So the aging process is helped out by our salt. And if you eat a good piece of dry aged meat, it cuts like butter. It's rare, it doesn't bleed, and you've got a flavor. Umami is developed. So the flavor of a good dry aged piece of beef, which is very expensive to do, is exceptional. And we've had good results with our press in Chicago and our customers as well. And what we'll do is we'll let you taste them. I think we have enough beef to send out. And you'll try to taste the difference between at least the 28 and the 80. And you can smell it. You'll smell it as we start carving. One of the reasons you can't dry age a filet is because it's, like I said, there's no protection. And this is a wet age product. And the difference between wet aging and dry aging is tremendous, because wet aging isn't really aging. Wet aging is cryovac beef sitting in its own blood. It is aging, but it's not really benefiting from air, oxygen, or, it's really going sour. So you can do this for about 60 days, but there's no real benefit to it. We're gonna start setting out some beef. You'll smell this beef when it comes out. It's probably one of the better steaks in the country, I think. I know Peter Luger has great steak. There's some great steakhouses in New York that have aged meat, but I don't know how many people age up to 80 days, just due to the fact that it starts to rot. So. You want to put together a shot? Yeah. Any questions on beef? Yes. The temperature is about 34, 35. Humidity 65, 75%. There's fans in the walk-in, and it's black lights also. And there's salt. We don't put anything else in that box except beef and salt. Okay. I'm sorry, yes? The pink salt? The salt is from the Himalayan mountains. We started importing it a few years ago. We have plenty of bricks like this. We're starting to cut things like bowls and butter blocks. And this is a plate that we serve sashimi on. The salt we put in the freezer. It's ice cold. We put the sashimi on last second. And actually it gets salty as it sits. So it's one of those dishes you have to really eat within 5-8 minutes or so.
Rick Farmer, Jarrett's restaurant in Memphis. How many times can you use that bowl and
the salt? What we do is we just rinse it off. There's no real bacteria that grows on here. We used to put it in the dishwasher. It'll shrink, obviously. Now we wipe them off, and they sterilize on their own. So the bowl probably, how many times you use that, Eric? 50 times? What happened? You can see how it's slanted because it got left on a dish table with water. But this bowl would probably last you maybe 100 uses. I think it's about $15 a pound or so for these type of salts. These are 5 pounds. So to invest in a dry aging room, it's pretty costly, but you're putting I think we've got about $30,000 to $50,000 worth of beef in that room at any time. So it's quite an investment to do dry aging beef.
Does the meat sit directly on the salt?
No, the wall is a wall. It sits on a rack, and the meat does not touch the salt as it ages. If you're going to serve on it, yes, it does. If we use a single brick, we'll serve Kobe, sashimi. Sometimes we do hot shrimp, and that'll get very salty. But the air in the aging box is really the key. And the air goes into the center of the meat. There's oxidation that goes on and a rancidity that starts setting in with the fat. But because the salt there is more pure, it doesn't turn as much. So we can age for a longer period of time. Here we go. What's that? You got the right dates? Here's what we do. We age it, we date it, and we put the weight on there, 1865 or 20 pounds. And again, it comes down. We probably lose about 40% on our beef. All right, we're going to move into a lobster dish. Want to start the mousse? We're going to do a buttercream with protein. Years back, we used to make mousses with pike, fish, eggs, cream. And what we found out is you don't really need the eggs or the cream. And you don't need to dilute the flavor. So what we do now is we puree the proteins, whether it's lobster, scallops, chicken, pork with butter. And we call it a buttercream because it's butter and protein. That becomes our binder for lobster steak that you'll see here, ravioli fillings, mousses. They're not really mousses because there's no cream, but they're buttercreams. And what happens, and you'll see when we cook this is lobster and butter, a little bit of seasoning. What happens is it's self-based as you cook it. So you'll get a piece of lobster that really tastes rich and like lobster because it's not blanched or seamed or grilled. And it's raw from here on in, and then it's locked in. And what happens is the butter sets up. It's a natural emulsified butter with the protein, and basically you've got a hot pate, basically. And what happens is the flavor's a little more nutty, a little more intense. Let's see what we get. So we start out with some lobster meat, and we got a couple of shrimps in here also. We got chives, and we've got very soft butter. Got a palette. So this is basically a 50-50 mix of protein and butter. We'll throw that on. So what you've got here is you've got a puree of lobster and shrimp and butter. I've got some chives in here and a little lemon zest. I'll put some salt and pepper. This will bind, let me get a little less in here. This will bind our mousses, our terrines. And again, we do this with chicken, we do it with pork, we do it with scallops. You got a what? What about these? This is lobster that we pulled out of the shell, semi-raw. Okay, let's start cooking this. We're cooking the lobster in a little bit of curry flavored oil. We'll also use that as a deep frying oil over here for French fries. What we do is I think we have 2 fryers at the restaurant here in New York. One is always a flavored oil for actually cooking in, just for better flavor. And the other one is normal. So, you get shoes? Start cutting. What's the age on them? If anybody wants to come up and take a look at this meat, please come on up. And actually get a smell of it on the raw state. You'll smell the meat as we slice it and it comes around the room. This is 80. What do you got here? 80, 55, you got a 28. I just smell that and feel it. So, they're all about the, well, we age 30 days minimum, and then we go up to 75, 80. I think 80 personally is a little too old for me. I like 40, 50 day. Laser. There's a shop we're setting up in Lodi, New Jersey that has all the equipment to cut salt and grind. So, isn't that fun? Yeah. Pardon me? The idea for the salt wall came from the fact that we tasted cardboard in the meat that we analyzed, and that was in the box, so that became the air, had cardboard in it, so we figured we'd do the salt. Worked out good. It's all dry aged beef. Wet age is a filet here. But, okay. Oh. I don't know which one. What are you cutting now?
This is the 40-day.
Yeah, we got a couple more things to do.
Now, like, that means not keep coming forward.
You want everybody back in their seats?
Yes, please.
We'll pass the beef out.
Please, please. I promise. Send it out. Send it out. Aaron?
You've got plates? We're going to get to that next.
I think we're going to break for lunch in a few minutes, so we'll pass some of that out, some of the steaks. So.
We don't dry age there yet. We will soon. We have the room to put a box in there, yes. I've got some shoestrings here that are cooked in, they're being fried in curry oil. They'll be done in a couple minutes. We've done tomato oils that you fry in. We've done ketchup oil that we fried French fries in. And you've got this unique built-in ketchup flavor on your fries. Anyway, here's the lobster filet mignon. I just sauteed it. I put it in the oven for a couple minutes. And it's, I started with about that much fat. I added a little bit of butter. So you see that the butter didn't come out of the steak. It's still locked in there. So when you cut through this, you're eating pureed lobster, a little bit of shrimp, and butter. And you've got a real nutty, raw lobster, cooked or toasted lobster flavor. There's lemon zest and there's some chives in there. But it's a delicious way to eat a lobster without the mess. I mean, there's a little work that goes into it. There we go. Let's get this out. See what that looks like? This is actually a 2-pound lobster. Huh?
Looks like.
We've had this on the menu for a while. Get some fries for you. Basically, it's a steak and potato dish. But the idea here is using butter and protein as your binders. It gives you much more a smooth texture, better flavor, butter, and it's self-basting as you go. You want to pass that out? Or?
Yeah. We'll get a tray for you, man.
Okay, we're going to talk about a little bit about brining. We've got we brine all our birds, our chicken, our duck. We use different types of brines. We use seaweed in a lot of the poultry brines. Seaweed has a property in it that kind of binds and gets the water and the protein together and helps it absorb a little bit more water. It's not getting into phosphates, which is really for heavy production, but you can use carrageenan or you can use fresh seaweed like we do here. And this is basically a brine that has salt, sugar, seaweed. There's garlic. There's some herbs in here. And we soak our chickens in this, and the flavor is phenomenal. The way, they absorb some of the liquid, and they never dry out. We also do it with ducks. Ducks, we use a little more Asian soys and gingers and honeys instead of sugar. And also that helps us with the color of the roasting of the duck. There's another way to do some brining here, and this is the sheets. We introduced these sheets to the market a few years ago. They're called Flavor Magic. And this is a type of brine, but it's dry. And what I did earlier is can you see this? We lay your protein on a sheet, and there's plenty of sheets here. This has about 30 different spices, seasonings, and flavors, which would take forever to find. What we do is we lay a chicken breast on there, a piece of salmon, in this case, shrimp. And what happens after a period of time, it's a transfer. So all the spices and flavors transfer to this. It's a dry brine, basically. And I'll cook these up. You see what happens here? Where the shrimp are laying down, the complete marinade fell off, or adhered to the shrimp. Here are the sheets if you guys want to take a look at them. How you doing with that meat? What happens with this transfer sheet is it adds weight to the proteins. And in a lot of cases for airlines and high production, you start with about 5 ounces, you end up with 4. With this sheet, you save another 20%. So you don't lose as much. You're adding weight to it, and because it's a brining effect, it plumps it up, so it keeps it moist. And that's basically one of the reasons this is designed. The other is for household use, just to have the right seasoning. You see how pretty this is? This is the curried oil French fry. And it adds another dimension of flavor as opposed to vegetable oil or peanut oil. Okay. You cut all the steaks? Should we pass these out there?
Yeah. Shall we pass them out?
I'm ready for questions, yes.
All right, guys. So let's open it on up for some questions. Antoinette will walk around. Maybe someone could help me out with this, man, because, you know, I'm going to eat it all. On this side, we have 40-day. On this side, we have 60-day.
My name is Dan Dreyer. I'm the corporate chef for Taco the Town in Orlando, Florida. I'm curious more about the tomato oil French fry.
The tomato oil is, what we do is we take canola oil, we cook tomatoes in it. We take the sugar and vinegar, cloves, things that flavor ketchup, and we use that to deep fry shoestrings like this. You got to be careful with the sugar because it'll burn. We do it about 325.
Yeah, this is another tray, okay? Make sure you hit
Another question?
this guy over there. Skip that guy right there.
My name is Michael Jacinto. I'm from Virginia Beach, Virginia. What kind of oil do you use when you do the infusion?
Well, we use, when we deep fry, we use canola. If we're using a flavored oil for a finishing touch, we use sometimes olive oil or a blend. We don't use extra virgin olive oil for any of the flavored oils.
Hi, David. Patrick Glennon, Group of Mex Holdings, corporate executive chef. Had a question on the dry age when you have the salt blocks on the wall. Do you find that any of the meat closest to the wall has a higher salt profile, or?
Well, we move them. We have to rotate the beef by every week. We move the meat around. We start at one section and we move it around. They're on racks. If you see them, they're on rolling racks. So we move the meat around the room just for air, basically for the air circulation. But that's a good question. Probably not, though.
Another question?
Another question? How's the beef? I mean, beef is so simple. There's so much work that goes into a steak on a plate. You know, a lot of the chefs, we think that, steak and potatoes is easy. But we own a bull in Kentucky. So we bought him as a way to ensure that we could get the top of the prime. Genetically proven, he is one of the best studs in America.
Could a StarChefs person come help Aaron? StarChefs?
He's a 2,500-pound Black Angus. His name is Prime. And there's some facts on his lineage. His father was a big guy too. His father is still producing even though he's dead, just through some frozen technology. And if you look at the beef business, it's very, very complex when it comes to breeding, slaughtering, aging, all that. So this stuff goes through a lot of work just to put a steak on a plate when you're barbecuing. It's very, very high tech, the beef industry. So to get a steak like this, there's a lot of work involved. It's not just, it's not a bunch of cowboys slaughtering beef and sending it over. So.
Hi, David. Nancy
Yes.
Stern from Uncomplicated Gourmet in New Jersey. Quick question about how long it takes to brine the shrimp. What is the transfer time that it requires?
Maybe an hour. Maybe an hour for shrimp. I think when I got here, I put them on. I only did one side though. You could use, you could fold it over or use two pieces. If you use a salmon or a chicken, or you could go up to 6 hours or overnight, and basically this whole thing will be clean. But it's pretty interesting because the flavors are good and it's simple.
David, Matt Schindler here, L'Atelier in Manhattan. I was just wondering what other flavors came out in the beef besides cardboard, and what you do to control
Well,
it.
you've got there's salt, obviously. There's sugars. There's all kinds of flavors. There's all kinds of stuff. As you age, the beef changes. The enzymes change, flavors change, and the salt obviously goes into the beef. But there's got to be 60 to 100 different chemical compounds in beef alone that make up its flavor. And then when you heat it, obviously, you're changing all those things.
Elizabeth Stelling with Cook Appeal from Princeton, New Jersey. I'm finding that a lot of my clients are kind of not wanting to have to go out and search for ingredients to duplicate a lot of my demo recipes. So I've been approached or talked to about packaging up my own spice mixtures and stuff, kind of like you're doing your flavor packets. And I know that as a business, you have to have different dimensions of it to, keep the money flowing and stuff. But do you have any recommendations on how to get started and who to contact?
If you want to start selling spice, not really. We started this out. There was a guy in business already up in Canada with the spice sheets. You can go to one of the major houses or one of the flavor houses in Jersey. If you're in Princeton, there's a pretty good one called Firmenich, and I think it's in Plainsboro, not far. And you could, if you want, I'll give you a contact there. Those guys can probably blend for you, or at least put you in the right direction with different flavors besides just dry spices. If you want some stuff that's a little bit more harder to get, tangerine powders, things like that.
Guys, we have time for one more question, okay, guys? So let's make it a good one.
I'm Am Shaw from Osteria di Tremonto, and I was curious if you have any feelings between grain-fed and grass-fed beef.
Good question. I like grain-fed beef. Grain-fed beef, there's a lot of grass-fed beef going on. There's a big movement for grass-fed beef now. Our beef is all natural anyway, but we do about a year on grass. It's fescue grass, and then we do about 3 months on corn. It's sweeter. It's a high-energy beef. The carbs get developed in the animal. Adds fat. It adds a little bit of sweetness. The pH in grass-fed beef is a little bit lower, and you got a little bit more sourness on grass-fed. Although, people, it's all a matter of taste, really. I prefer a well-dry-aged, grain-fed beef.
All right. Okay, guys. Antoinette's going to make a couple comments on some important information. Can we please give a round of applause to Chef David Burke, please?
Thank you. Let me introduce Eric Harrow. I'm sorry.
And also Eric
is
Harrow,
a rising
please.
star chef, and he's the chef at David Burke and Donatella, and he does a great job.
Chef, what time will you be signing your book?
I think 15 minutes.
And Chef's going to be signing his cookbook shortly, so please make it a point to come out and meet him and ask him any other questions you might have. All right?